Ever get the feeling a website's like giving you the side eye? Like it's trying to tell you something beyond the words.
I like that.
Well, today we're playing Website Whisperer.
Oh,
Deep dive into Klinikum Dortmund, a hospital in Germany. We're using their website as our detective's toolkit, right?
okay.
Analyzing their online presence to see what it tells us about their approach to, well, everything.
It's amazing how much a website can reveal about an organization's priorities, their values, even unintentionally,
Right.
like digital body language.
Exactly. And the first thing that hits you on Klinikum Dortmund's page is this tagline, "For your health, for our city." Simple, catchy, but they repeat it 4 times right at the top.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Overzealous marketing or a strategic message?
I'm leaning towards strategic. In healthcare, building trust, it's paramount. And they're not just a hospital. They're Dortmund's hospital, deeply rooted in the community. That repetition, it hammers home that connection.
It's like they're saying, we're in this together from the start. And speaking of in this together, right below the tagline onslaught is this massive navigation menu. Departments, patient info, careers, it's all right there.
Yeah, and it's not just about being easy to navigate, though that's important for any website. It suggests a commitment to transparency.
Oh, interesting.
They're not hiding anything, it's all laid out. What stands out to you about this?
It reminds me of those massive "you are here" maps you find in malls.
Yeah.
Except instead of the food court, it's guiding you through the world of healthcare.
What's fascinating is it's not just patients they're catering to. It's potential employees, med students, researchers. It speaks to a more holistic view of their role, right? Like in the whole healthcare ecosystem.
Okay, so we've got community connection, we've got transparency, but hold on to your hats because next up is a deep dive into their departments. And let me tell you, this hospital wears a lot of hats. We're talking everything from your standard cardiology, oncology,
Right.
to a dedicated Unfall clinic.
Unfall clinic.
Yeah, which, for those of us who don't speak German, is a trauma center.
And not just any trauma center. They make it a point to highlight it's one of the largest in Germany.
It's like they're saying, if you've got a boo-boo, we've got the Band-Aid. And by Band-Aid, I mean a state-of-the-art medical facility with every specialist under the sun. They even call out their robot-assisted surgery department, name-dropping Da Vinci like it's the latest iPhone.
There's some strategic use of familiar technology there. It's less intimidating, even exciting for some. But what's interesting is their emphasis on a holistic approach, especially within their trauma care.
Right. Like it's not just about patching you up and sending you on your way. It's about treating the whole person. Now, that could be clever marketing, but it also suggests a certain philosophy of care, don't you think?
Absolutely. They recognize that physical trauma is often intertwined with emotional and psychological needs. It speaks to a broader understanding of what it means to heal.
Makes you wonder if that philosophy extends beyond just the trauma center. And you know what else caught my eye? Nestled among all these departments is a big friendly donate button. Now, most hospitals have them, but it feels significant in light of everything else we're seeing. What do you think? Is it just me, or does that button seem a little louder here?
No, you're onto something. It's subtle, but it does raise questions about healthcare funding in Germany. Do they rely more heavily on philanthropy? Is it indicative of, like, broader systemic challenges? These are all avenues worth exploring further, don't you think?
Definitely food for thought. But before we get lost in the world of healthcare economics, let's click on something a little more human, their team player section. This is where things get really interesting.
A hospital website featuring its employees.
Yeah.
That's not something you see every day.
Right. Usually it's all about the technology, the shiny equipment,
Yeah.
those impressive medical degrees. But here, they're putting the spotlight on everyone, like the faces behind the scenes, the people who make the hospital actually tick. We've got a social worker, right? Talking about patient advocacy. A maintenance technician explaining like how important it is to keep everything running, even someone from patient admissions. They're sharing what they love about being that first point of contact. It's like they're giving us a backstage pass to, the human side of healthcare.
And I think that's exactly the point. Like they're breaking down these barriers, reminding us it's not just doctors and nurses, it's a whole ecosystem of people working together. This approach, it resonates with that growing emphasis on patient-centered care, where the focus is on the individual's well-being within, of course, the larger context of their lives. It's not just like treating the illness, it's about caring for the person.
It makes you wonder if they're trying to attract new talent with this kind of approach too. Like, hey, come join our team. We're more than just a hospital. We're a community.
It's certainly possible. A positive work environment is a huge draw. and showcasing their employee diversity, not just in terms of roles, but backgrounds and experiences. It really speaks volumes, I think, about their organizational culture.
It's refreshing, honestly.
Yeah.
But let's maybe shift gears a bit. Let's talk about how this whole community focus extends beyond just the physical hospital walls. Because Klinikum Dortmund, right, they're not just about treating people when they're sick, but they're also big on like preventative care and education. Their events calendar, it's bursting with like workshops and classes. And we're not just talking about your typical, how to take your blood pressure kind of stuff.
Exactly. They're going above and beyond. They have a workshop on like emergency ultrasonography. I'd be curious to see what that even entails. But they also have things like, breast self-exam classes, infant care for new parents, even support groups for people with specific conditions.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're here for you at every stage of life, not just when you're sick. It reminds me of that tagline, for your health, for our city. They're not just paying lip service to the idea, they're actually living it.
And that's an important distinction to make, right? We see a lot of this, like, corporate social responsibility stuff these days. But this feels more ingrained in their identity, I think. It's not a box they're ticking. It's woven into the fabric of who they are.
It makes you wonder, what are the long-term implications of an approach like this? Could this emphasis on community health actually lead to a healthier population overall? And if so, what can other healthcare systems learn from Klinikum Dortmund?
Those are excellent questions, and I'm afraid we may not have all the answers today. But that's the beauty of a deep dive, isn't it? It's not about finding all the answers, it's about asking the right questions.
Love that. Speaking of questions, there are a few things we stumbled on that left us scratching our heads. Like, for instance, their certificates and awards section. It exists, but it's completely empty.
Curious, isn't it? Could be simple oversight. Maybe they're just in the process of updating it. But it does make you wonder, how else do they demonstrate their credibility?
Right. Do they rely more on word of mouth? Patient testimonials? Government rankings, maybe? Maybe in Germany it's less about boasting about awards. It's more about letting the quality of care speak for itself.
It's an intriguing thought. And it leads us to another head-scratcher. Their incredibly comprehensive list of self-help groups. We're talking everything.
Right.
Support groups for specific illnesses, groups for new parents, caregivers, even people dealing with everyday stress.
It's like they've thought of every possible need someone might have, even if it's not, directly medical. What do you make of that?
To me, it speaks to like a much deeper understanding of health and well-being. They recognize that true health, it extends far beyond just the absence of disease. It's about mental health, social support, feeling connected to your community. They're addressing the social determinants of health, recognizing that factors like isolation or lack of support can be just as detrimental as any physical ailment.
It's a good reminder that we're not just like a collection of symptoms. We're complex human beings living in a complex world. And sometimes just knowing you're not alone, it can be the best medicine. But before we get too philosophical, let's wrap up with one final observation. Their social media presence. Now, most hospitals have Facebook pages, Instagram accounts these days, right? But there's something about the way Klinikum Dortmund presents themselves online. It just feels different. They're not just posting about like the latest medical breakthrough, but they're sharing these stories about their staff, highlighting community events, even responding to like patient comments and questions.
Yeah, it speaks to a level of transparency and engagement, and you don't always see that in healthcare. They're not just broadcasting information, but they're actively participating in a dialogue, right? Like they're humanizing themselves. And by doing that, they're building trust, right? And they're fostering that sense of community that extends far beyond just the hospital walls.
And isn't that what it's all about? Creating a healthcare system that's not just about treating illness, but about nurturing well-being in all its forms. It's really amazing how much we can pick up from just poking around a website,
Yeah.
It's like, we did a virtual tour of Klinikum Dortmund.
I did.
But we also kind of got a peek into their, like, heart, their philosophy of care.
Definitely. It really does paint the picture. The way they emphasize their tagline, that transparency in their navigation, remember that team player section?
Oh, yeah.
It all points towards this very deliberate effort, right? Like to present themselves as more than just, oh, you're sick. Okay, come to us.
Yeah. Yeah, like they want to be seen as this vital part of their community, not just a hospital, but like a resource,
A partner.
a partner in health. It makes you wonder, though, I mean, does this reflect something bigger going on in German healthcare?
Oh, interesting.
Like, is this whole community engagement thing, holistic care, preventative medicine, is that unique to Klinikum Dortmund, or is it, like a cultural shift?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we can't draw conclusions from just one website, but it does offer, some clues.
Right.
Germany's got that long history with socialized medicine. So the focus is on providing care for everyone, right? Could be this community-centric approach as an extension of that.
Makes sense. If you see healthcare as a right, not a privilege, then yeah, hospitals would see themselves as responsible for everyone's well-being.
Right. And that might explain why they're so into preventative care and education, too.
Oh, yeah.
Empower individuals, take charge of their own health. It's not just good for patients, it lightens the load on the healthcare system overall.
It does make you wonder, like, what would it take to replicate this kind of approach elsewhere? What can we learn from what they're doing well? And maybe even more importantly, what about their challenges? What can we learn from those?
It's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the kinds of questions that push things forward, drive progress, lead to new ideas. By studying different ways healthcare is done, we figure out what works best. Then we adapt it to fit our own situations.
And that, my friend, is why we deep dive. It's not just about uncovering cool facts, it's about asking those questions, challenging what we think we know. Ultimately, we use this knowledge to hopefully make the world a healthier place. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about Klinikum Dortmund, their approach being deliberate, they're clearly shaping their image,
Absolutely.
this narrative about who they are, what they stand for, and it seems to be working, at least online. But it makes you wonder, what's the story they're not telling?
The eternal mystery. Every story's got its shadows, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there are challenges they're not putting on their website.
Yeah.
Or parts of how they operate that are still a work in progress.
Or like maybe they're still trying to figure out what story they want to tell.
Exactly.
Good reminder that what we see online is just one little piece of much bigger, much more complicated picture. So listener, we'll leave you with this. What story does your local hospital tell? Take a deep dive into their website, see what you find. We'd love to hear about it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep.